A quorum being present, the subcommittee will come to order. I'm going to start by recognizing myself and the acting ranking member. Today, Mr. Connolly is acting as the ranking member. Mr. Sirius took ill today, and we miss him, but we're thrilled to have Mr. Connolly here today. And without objection, the members of the subcommittee can present brief remarks if they choose, or they can submit them for the record. And now I would yield myself as much time as I can consume, or will consume, to make my opening remarks. Good afternoon, and welcome to this hearing on investor confidence in the rule of law in the Western Hemisphere. This hearing is really just a confirmation of our subcommittee's effort to be at the forefront of the discussion of how to bring greater growth and prosperity to our hemisphere. And as I've said countless times before, the United States should be unapologetic in promoting the principles of entrepreneurship, economic freedom, and free trade. Indeed, the promotion of these principles is a powerful foreign policy tool that can bring freedom and democracy to people all over the world. The crucial element to all of this, though, is the rule of law. Unless there is transparency, predictability, and the clear laws that are not subject to the whim of the executive, investors will lose confidence, and entrepreneurs will look for better markets in which to launch their innovations and create jobs. The humanitarian crisis along our border underscores the importance of policies that promote economic freedom and the rule of law to bring about opportunity, peace, and prosperity. We're seeing thousands of children taking a treacherous journey at the mercy of human smugglers from Central America up to the United States. It is true that the President's statements undermining our immigration laws have increased and encouraged this mass migration pattern, but these children are desperately trying to get away from countries that lack rule of law and economic opportunity. Elsewhere in the region, we have seen leftist populist leaders systematically undermine the rule of law while enacting policies that have all but destroyed their economies. Venezuela, a nation rich in resources, continues to face record inflation, scarcity, and insecurity. An economist at Goldman Sachs recently said that the level of macroeconomic dysfunction in Venezuela is so deep that the story is no longer just about oil prices. Meanwhile, Heritage Foundation's Index of Economic Freedom described Venezuela as having perfected the art of the art of the 21st century corruption, where government leaders act with complete impunity, where their entire formal economy now operates on a black market. President Maduro combines gross mismanagement of Venezuela's economy with undemocratic and heavy-handed tactics to silence his critics. From the violent crackdown of protesters to the arrest and imprisonment of opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez, Venezuela continues to be an embarrassment to our hemisphere's democratic sensibilities. I must say I'm extremely disappointed with the Obama administration's lack of leadership all over the world, including right here in our own hemisphere. Every day we see the results of American disengagement and of a president more interested in apologizing for our country than defending our values. The very clear result is that our friends and allies no longer trust us, and our adversaries no longer fear us. In the Americas, President Obama's perceived weakness has cleared the way for Russia, China, and Iran to establish economic and diplomatic influence right at our doorstep. This reality should give us all great pause. Just this past week, a Venezuelan general, close ally of the late President Hugo Chavez, and known associate of FARC narcotics traffickers, was arrested on U.S. drug charges on the Dutch island Aruba. Astonishingly, the Netherlands chose to acquiesce to Venezuelan pressure, releasing General Carvajal to return to Venezuela for a hero's welcome on grounds that he had diplomatic immunity on the island. The sad fact is that U.S. credibility worldwide has been so damaged that a Venezuelan who had been blacklisted by Treasury for aiding FARC terrorists in narco trafficking was released by our Dutch allies under Venezuelan pressure. Recall that this body passed a Venezuela sanctions bill in May after President Maduro's continued violent aggression and repression of protesters. And we've been pressing the administration to move forward with some form of punitive measure to show the Venezuelan government and the world that we're not going to stand by as the rights of freedom seekers are trampled by undemocratic dictators. I was gratified to receive a phone call from Assistant Secretary Jacobson yesterday letting me know that the administration would announce today that visa denials and prohibitions against over 20 Venezuelan government officials complicit in violent repression of protesters and opposition. This action on the part of the administration is so long overdue and merely a step in the right direction. The administration must be unrelenting in reaffirming our commitment to protecting basic democratic rights worldwide. Blatant disregard for democratic values and the rule of law have affected Argentina's economic outlook. Another country rich in natural resources and human capital, Argentina has been under the stranglehold to the leftist populist policies of Cristina Kirchner and her late husband Nestor before her. Plagued by corruption and a stated policy that flouts the rule of law, Argentina is an economic basket case. In fact, unless drastic last-minute measures are taken, Argentina is scheduled to default on billions of dollars to bondholders today. The consequences of a second default in 13 years will be dire for the Argentinian people and their economy. I'm looking forward to hearing witnesses' analysis of this looming default and what long-term impacts will be for Argentina and for the region. Ecuador poses another challenge in the region. Insulated to some degree by a dollarized economy, Correa's authoritarian approach to both the economy and governance in general places Ecuador among the least democratic nations in the Americas. Arbitrary regulations and media laws that stifle dissent are disappointing, the hallmarks of the Andean country. More important, President Correa has consistently coupled his attacks against democracy and free trade with open antipathy to the United States and her interests. Meanwhile, the Obama administration has failed to come up with a strategy to deal with the ALBA bloc countries, Ecuador, Bolivia, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, and to encourage more market-friendly and democratic values in our region. It seems clear to me that a commitment to the rule of law coupled with free trade and economic liberty will lead to stronger and more vibrant democracies. We should all be encouraged by the exciting free trade bloc known as the Pacific Alliance, as well as the prospect that energy reforms in Mexico could bring about greater North American energy independence and security. The Western Hemisphere is commercially and culturally vibrant, and the United States should do more to encourage the opening of markets and opportunity to nations currently strangled by populism. This will do much to empower citizens, make them less dependent on government, thereby making governments less powerful and less authoritarian. But to realize these goals of a more prosperous and free Western Hemisphere, the U.S. has got to do the leading. As we are seeing around the globe today, the unraveling of U.S. leadership is not just embarrassing, it threatens peace and stability. You can't turn on the news on any station without seeing our failed leadership completely across the globe. Now it's time to turn the tide and re-engage to inspire our regional neighbors to seek freedom and economic prosperity through open markets that are protected by the rule of law. And I'm eager to hear from witnesses about how the United States can work constructively to improve transparency and the rule of law in our hemisphere. And I would now recognize Mr. Connolly.